Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to stick to Sweden, and we're also going to stick to my home county of Skåne here in the very south of the country. Now we're going to return to a brewery that's featured on the channel many times before. I've had some really nice beers from these guys over the years, a good few different styles, but if people were to ask me about this brewery, I would say that these days they're best known for their different kinds of IPAs, but they've been doing a lot more lagers in recent times, which have always been very, very nice. And they do, I think, consider themselves to be more of a lager brewery than anything else. But the beer we're going to have a look at today is a sub-style that I very much enjoy. It's one that has been getting a little bit more popular in recent times, I have to say. So, and I'm certainly not going to complain about that. And it's also a sub-style that I haven't tried from this brewery yet. So, needless to say, I'm very curious to see what this one is going to have in store for us. Hopefully it's another good beer. Hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we're going to head a little bit to the northeast of me here in Lund to Eslöv, and we're going to have a look then at another beer from Remmarlöv Gårdsbryggeri. So this particular beer is called Clara. It comes in at 4.7% ABV, and this one is a Mexican lager. So yeah, for those of you who don't know, a Mexican lager usually contains a little bit of corn and sometimes a little bit of rice as well, actually. So yeah, these can be really nice, very just crisp, easygoing, drinkable beers. Of course, some of the most famous examples would be the likes of, you know, Modelo, Corona, a few other things like this. But yeah, the Mexican lagers, I think, can be very, very nice actually. And I've had a good few of these beers in recent times. We had one on tap in the pub actually, which was the Eslöv Mexican lager, and I thought that was just really, really nicely done. But yeah, always cool to see Remmarlöv trying new styles of lager. They've done quite a few over the years, and this one just kind of caught my eye because I do enjoy a good Mexican lager. So let's crack on with this one then and see what this beer is going to have in store for us. So, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Remmarlöv Gårdsbryggeri before, and we will no doubt add more to that list in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated. And remember, you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So just go in there, use the little search bar, put your hometown, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that though, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries, and you'll find this one in the Swedish playlist along with many other things, and you can check out the playlist of beers from other countries as well. But yeah, let's go on to my brewery notes then, and I'll tell you a little bit about Remmarlöv Gårdsbryggeri then. So, Remmarlöv Gårdsbryggeri, as I've mentioned to you already, and as the name suggests, are based on a farm in Eslöv, which is kind of to the northeast-ish of Lund. So they've been brewing here since the winter and autumn of 2014, and then in January of 2015 they started selling their beers through Systembolaget, which for those of you outside of Sweden is the national alcohol monopoly. But the owner and founder of this company is Håkan Nilsson, and together with his wife Michelle, he started his plan for a brewery a couple of years ago, and the brewery is located on his family farm, and Håkan is the fifth generation here, the fifth generation of his family to farm the countryside here in Skåne. But the old barn was renovated and a brew house of 1,500 litres was installed, and they hired Hampus Olofsson as the head brewer in August of 2014, and he had previously worked for Malmö Brewing, Malmö Taproom before this. But over the last few years, they've been gradually expanding the brewing capacity. They now have a 3,000 litre brew kit, and recently they invested in a lot of new fermentation tanks. And that was back in the spring of 2018 that they started this kind of expansion program. But this takes their capacity up to a possible 800,000 litres of beer per year. But in summer of 2019, they opened their summer pub, which was opening every Wednesday, and they were planning further expansions to the brewery over 2020, but this was put to a halt when the COVID pandemic hit. I'm not sure if they've actually reopened their summer pub. I would think they have, so this is something that I do need to look into. I do need to go up to Eslöv and have a little look at the Remmarlöv Gårdsbryggeri summer pub. Actually, it'd be really cool to go and film a little out and about video there. But it'd be cool to see these guys open up a bar here in Lund or in Malmö or something like that. Actually, I would love to see them do that. But as of June 2022, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 105 different kinds of beer according to Untappd. Like I said to you, they're doing a lot of different lagers these days. You know, they've done Rauch beers, Dunkels, Tmavis, all of these kind of things, Mexican lagers, Japanese rice lagers, you name it. When it comes to lagers, Remmarlöv have been doing some really, really nice examples of these. But they do a number of very good IPAs as well. They released a nice West Coast IPA, which I'm considering checking out, and I've had some really nice New Englands and West Coasts from these guys over the years. They haven't done so much in the way of like barley wines or imperial stouts recently, but they have done a few of those over the years, in fact. But yeah, these guys are one of my really local breweries here in Skåne in the south of Sweden, and they are definitely worth checking out if you get the chance. But yeah, that is everything that I can really tell you about Remmarlöv Gårdsbryggeri for the moment. If you want to learn a little bit more about these guys, you can of course check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's go on then and have a little look at the beer itself. So as you can see, this one is actually a half-litre can. It's not even 440 millilitres, which I think is a little bit unusual for Remmarlöv. They've decided to go with a half-litre with this one. But you can see gold top on the can there. Nice artwork on it, I have to say. I think they've gone for a kind of Mexican sort of fabric pattern. I have seen these kind of things before, but you can see one of the symbols that they always put on their beers there, made in Skåne, which is nice, and then the text up here is Remmarlöv Gårdsbryggeri, which I think is great. But yeah, as you can see, this beer is a half-litre. I think this one actually only cost me about 35 Swedish kronor, so that's about €3.50, maybe in the region of like £3 sterling, about $4 American, something like that. But yeah, let's get this guy out into the glass and see how we go. This is the Clara Mexican Lager, 4.7% ABV, and I forgot to say earlier, this one was released as part of the Lokalt på Småskaligt assortment through Systembolaget here in Sweden for June of 2023. Yeah, usually quite good at mentioning that. I just forgot today, obviously. But yeah, there we are. So that's the beer out and into the glass. So yeah, there we go. So in terms of the colour and appearance and stuff of this one, it's pretty much what you'd expect from a Mexican lager. So you can see we've got a nice finger of a frothy, I would say perfect white head. It's got a little bit of bumpiness to it there, which you can see. I think that's great. But yeah, lovely kind of pale golden straw colour, this one. One or two big bubbles sticking toward the side of the glass, a few little ones going up toward the bottom of the head there, but overall it does look very, very nice. So you've got nice little bits of kind of sedimentary particle kind of floating around in this one, which is great. And I think that does look pretty good. But you can see lovely kind of pale golden straw colour, this one. It does look yeah, it does look pretty damn nice actually. Yeah, remember the colour of your beer depends on a few things. One, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. Two, length of your wort boil is also going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you're going to get a darker colour of beer. Any barrel aging that you do or adjuncts you put in will of course affect the colour of your beer as well. And I think in the case of a kind of rice lager, you will get a little bit of the yellow colour, I think, from the corn, and the rice of course might play a role as well. I don't know if this one does have rice, and it just says mais, so yeah, I don't think this one has rice in it. But yeah, lovely liquor to this one, pretty much as you would expect for the style, to be honest with you, appearance wise. So let's have a little look at the aroma of this one then and see what we get. I don't think we really need to see much more about the appearance of this beer, to be honest with you. So, aroma time. Oh, that's quite nice. Yeah, when you sugar this up, you get more of the, it does smell more like a Mexican lager, but if you just let it settle, it doesn't smell of too much at all. But this is the thing, of course, with lager beers. They're not the biggest generally speaking, lagers are not the biggest and boldest of styles. They're designed to be drinkable, of course. So remember, the technical definition of a lager is a beer that uses a bottom fermenting yeast which will ferment at lower temperatures, usually between 8 to 12 degrees, in comparison with ales. They are top fermenting yeast that ferment at higher temperatures. That's the technical difference between these beers. But quite often lagers take a longer time to ferment than ales do because of that lower temperature. Simple chemistry, slower rates of reactions at lower temperatures. There you go. But yeah, the aroma of this one is really nice actually. Gives you everything you'd want from the stout. You've got a little bit of breadiness in there, you've got a little bit of sweetness from the rice, you've got the nice kind of crisp hops and things. This is a really nice smelling beer, so it gets a big thumbs up from me. Yeah, so on the where do we start with this one then? So the backbone of this beer, you've got a lovely little bit of kind of fresh white bready bread crust in there. That is absolutely forming the backbone of the beer. It almost has a little bit of a kind of it almost has a little bit of that like the fresh flour. It's almost like it's come right out of the bakery. You do get a little tiny bit of woodiness in the base of the aroma with this beer as well, and then there's a wee bit of a kind of Jacob's cream cracker coming out of this one too, which I think is very, very nice. So yeah, aroma wise, I think this beer goes together very well, so it gets a big thumbs up from me. Yeah, on the malty side of things then, you do get a little touch of like a wholemeal brown bread coming out of this beer, but not too much. So you've got the bread crust, you've got the cracker. Yeah, you've got the bread crust, the cracker, a little bit of the kind of wholemeal sort of thing coming out of this one, and then above that you start to get the kind of fluffier white bready character coming out of the beer, which I think is really, really nice. But then you start to get the sweetness of the rice. You have to sugar the beer up actually to get the ricey character out of it. So yeah, the way that goes together is really quite nice in fact. So that gets a thumbs up from me. And yeah, so yeah, the ricey character comes out when you sugar the beer up a little bit, and then above that you start to get a little bit more of the above that you do start to get a little bit more of the kind of sweetness out of this one. So you've got a wee touch of you do have a nice little touch of like on top of the ricey sweetness, there's a little bit of a kind of sweet McVitie's digestive biscuity character to this one. Then you've got a little bit more of an oily syrupy biscuit there, but then the drier kind of biscuity characters too. But yeah, the way everything goes together in this beer, I think, is really quite nice. Yeah, the way for me, this beer gets a big thumbs up in that sense. They've got the malty base kind of spot on. I do wonder if there's a little touch of Pilsner malt in this one, because when I take the aroma in a little bit more deeply, you just get a little touch of that kind of very crisp, dry Pilsner malty character out of this one. But I wouldn't be surprised if there wasn't at the same time. I'm curious. It's more curiosity. But yeah, there is a little touch of that Pilsner malty dryness, I think, in the top of those. But otherwise, this one's really smooth and bready. Then you get the riciness out of it a little bit later on. So yeah, aroma-wise, this is pretty damn nice. On the hoppy side of things, then you've got a nice little touch of earthiness in there. So yeah, a little bit of earthiness, a little bit of herbal character, some nice floral aromaticity as well. Actually, I'd be curious to know what hop they've used in this one. It smells like it could have been a little bit of like Czech Sats, or it could even be one of the local ones from Corn Gordon's actually, because the floral character in this one's really distinctive. I would be very curious to know what hop they've actually used in this. But yeah, you have got a little bit of smooth earthiness, a little bit of herbal character, a nice little bit of floral aromaticity, and a wee touch of zestiness from the grass. The hoppy character in this actually reminds me a little bit of the Skånsk Pilsner. So I wouldn't be surprised if they're using the Skånsk hops in this one. There is, of course, what do they grow there? They grow Magnum, Ness, and another one. I forget how that, I forget what the other one is. I think they've got Cascade, if I remember rightly, and then there's another one. But yeah, aroma-wise, the hoppy side, the green component is very, very nice. Yeah. I think this goes together very, very well in that sense though. But yeah, the hoppy character does remind me of the Skånsk Pilsner actually, which is a really, really nice beer. On the fruity side of things, it's kind of what you'd expect. You don't get too much in the way of fruitiness from these kind of beers, but yeah, you have a little bit of a... You've got a little touch of sultana, you know, dry white green grapes. You've got a little bit of... yeah, a little bit of dry white green grape, a little bit of oily pear, and there's a wee bit of a... I get a slight gooseberry out of this one actually, which is interesting. So yeah, slight little bit of gooseberry, a little bit of kind of lemon limey character, and then yeah, the way it goes together I think is really, really nice. So yeah, I like that with this one. So yeah, it's interesting. It's a really nice Mexican lager. Smell this beer. It gives you everything you'd want. But I like smelling the beers, obviously, and just taking a wee bit of time. I always advise that everyone else does that, but quite often people are very keen just to jump in. But I like looking at the aroma a little bit and trying to guess what's going on. But yeah, do what you like with it. As I always say, I think it's good to take a bit of a time to smell the beers before you get stuck into them. But we are going to try this one now. So yeah, this is the Clara, a 4.7% Mexican lager beer from Remmarlöv Gårdsbryggeri in Eslöv here in Skåne in the south of Sweden. Let's do this. Slange, skål, cheers, salut. That's pretty nice, yeah. Ooh, yeah, this is good. Going to say straight away, Remmarlöv have done a very nice job of this again. And you know, to be honest, these days when it comes to lagers, they're getting better and better. So like back in the day, their lagers had a little bit of yeah, the lagers are getting back in the day their lagers had a little bit of rawness and stuff to them, but these days they come across as very refined, and you know the recipes are very solid actually. So if you want a good lager, yeah, you can't really go wrong with Remmarlöv. Very, very nice beers. And this beer, you know, on first impression, it gives you everything that you would want from a Mexican lager. It's not the most oily within the style category that I've had. This one has a little bit more kind of breadiness and things to it. But yeah, it's definitely it's definitely very in keeping with the style, and that's what you want. If they're going to do a Mexican lager, you want it to be like, you know, you want it to be like, as I say, Modelo or Pacifico Clara or you know, something like this. But you want it to be, you want it to be just that little bit more punchy. And this one delivers on that. It does. Yeah, but this is good. Good. I should have probably bought 2 cans for the review of this because it's going to go down very, very easily. So I'll need to see if any of the Systembolaget here in Lund have it and get a few more cans. This might be quite nice actually to go out and sit in the park and drink a few of these, to be honest, and just chill in the sun. But anyway, let's break this beer down and analyse it a little bit more, as we always do. We'll start with the middle third of the palate, as we usually do. So the backbone of this beer, you've got that lovely kind of fresh white bready bread crust coming out of this one. And I think that goes together really, really nicely. So yeah, lovely fresh white bready bread crust in there. That forms the backbone of the beer. There's a little bit of an almost kind of flour character to it as well, but then further up from that, you get a little touch of woodiness toward the front of that middle third of your palate, which I do really like. And above that, you've got a wee bit of a kind of crackery note to this one as well. So yeah, nice little bit of Jacob's cream crackery quality coming out of this one. Then above that, you have some nice, you do have a nice little bit of kind of fluffy wholemeal brown bready character in there, which, as I say, I think goes together really quite well. Above that as well, you get some nice kind of, the kind of wholemeal brown bready character just adds a little bit more graininess into the malt base of the beer, which is interesting. So that's maybe where this one varies a little bit from some of the other Mexican lagers that I've had. But other than that, it's pretty bang on. Above the kind of wholemeal brown bready layer, you start to get a little bit of the more, you get a little bit of the kind of fluffy white bread in there. And I think I've got a feeling that it's probably German, or it's either German malt that's in this one, or it's local Viking malt, which is good. The other thing to point out about Remmarlöv's beers is I believe they're all organic as well. This is the other thing. That's an interesting point actually. I don't know with this one doesn't have the organic mark on it, so maybe it's the corn, but most of the maybe they've kind of the Mexican corn isn't fully organic, but usually the Remmarlöv beers are all they all have the ekologisk mark on them, the organic mark, but this one doesn't, so I'm guessing that probably it's the rice in this case that means they can't use that. But yeah, with this one, as I say, you can feel the sort of fluffiness in the white bready layer, and it's either Viking malt, which I believe is produced locally, or it could be a little bit of a German malt there, but the bready character in this one gives you a wee bit of dryness the further into the aftertaste that you go, but I like that. Above the white bready layer, you start to get the kind of malty characteristics coming out of this one. Above the bready character, you start to get the kind of corny aspects coming out of this one, so you can feel that nice oily corny character sitting in there. So yeah, the nice corny character in this beer just lingers there, and you get more and more sweetness out of that the further into the aftertaste that you go. But you can also feel that in the dead centre of your palate, you've got a kind of concentrated McVitie's digestive biscuity type quality coming out of this one, which is good. And as you move out toward the edges of your palate there, you start to get a little bit of the kind of you start to get a little bit of the more kind of grainy side of the biscuit too. So you can feel this one. It's really nice how the kind of the corny sweetness in the biscuit sort of linger there into the aftertaste. So I do like that about this beer. The other thing you're going to notice is that I think we've said everything we really need about the middle third of the palate now, for the most part. But if you go to the border region between middle and back third of the palate, you get a nice little bit of bready build up in there. And you can feel a bit of brown bread in the base, a little bit of white bread in the top, and you can start to feel what I suspect is a little bit of kind of Pilsner malt or a little bit of lager malt. The flavour in this one reminds me of the Viking lager malt, actually. So yeah, I'm wondering if there's a bit of that in here, because what you get in this beer, toward the back of that middle third of the palate, and on the kind of front at the top, on the back third of the palate, you do get this little bit of almost like slightly Pilsnery type dryness. But as I say, it's not quite as crisp in things as some of the German Pilsner malts or the Czech Pilsner malts you're going to get. So that makes me think it could be the Viking lager malt there. But yeah, you do have a wee bit of that almost Pilsnery type dryness coming out of the beer, which is good. And the biscuity character that's in this one as well would suggest a little bit of Pilsner malt. But yeah, I like how that goes together. I think that, yeah, we can have a little look at that back third of the palate now. As I've often said, the back third of the palate, you get similar flavours, but they just come out in different intensities. But the general trend with your palate is that the further back on the palate you go, the more bitter and dry flavours you're going to get. The further forward you go, the more sweet flavours you're going to get. So, yeah, that's what I'm seeing with this one. So yeah, as I say, on the back third of the palate then, you can feel the bread crusty characters there, a little bit drier. Above that you get a wee touch of cracker. You've got a lighter and more fluffy wholemeal brown bready character coming out. Sorry about the edit there, guys. My phone just decided it was going to set an alarm off, so not sure how much you would have seen of that. But anyway, as I was saying, we're on the back third of the palate. You've got that little bit of drier bread crust in there. You've got the wee bit of kind of cracker above it. Then you get the fluff. You get a slightly taller and more fluffy, airy wholemeal brown bread there, and then you've got the same from the white bread above that. And you can kind of feel just above everything else, some of the dryness of the lager malt just creeps over the top there. and gives you that little bit of dryness on top of the back third of the palate. So yeah, the way that that goes together, I think, is really quite nice. On top of that, though, you do get a little bit of yeasty character coming out of the beer. So for me, the yeasty notes in this one, they're quite, it's kind of like a sort of farmhousey white bread, but it's got a little bit more woodiness and crackeriness to it, and it's almost just wrapped in a little touch of kind of honeycomb. So yeah, those are the yeasty notes on top of the back third of the palate, but definitely you can feel the back third of the palate, the flavour is taller. Then as you come further forward into the middle third of your palate, it just kind of condenses down and squashes together that little bit more. So yeah, the way that goes together, I think, is really quite nice, in fact. But yeah, on the hoppy side of things, I think we can go on to that. The green component of this one is quite nice, and you do get a little touch of bitterness out of this beer the further into the aftertaste you go. But yeah, back corners of the palate, you've got a nice little bit of earthiness in there. Then as you come further forward, it's got a little touch of herbal character, and as you reach the front corners of the palate, you've got more of a kind of floral aromatic sort of thing. But there is just something about the hops in this beer that make me wonder if they are using some of the Swedish hops in this, because the bitterness that you get out of this beer is quite reminiscent of the Skånsk Pilsner, which is one of their kind of flagship beers actually. But round the front curve of the tongue, it's a little bit lighter and more grassy. As I say, the way that that goes together is really, really nice. So yeah, the green component of this one, I think, is really quite nice in that sense. So yeah, you get a little bit of zesty grassiness there, a little bit of floral character, and as I say, a little bit of earthy herbal note. So yeah, it does give you that little bit of complexity. On the front third of the palate then, so the border region between front third and middle third of your palate, you get a nice little bit of a kind of brown bready base in there, a little bit of white bread, and you can feel just a little bit of dryness in there. So that's the border region. The base of that front third of your palate, again, you've got a little bit of the bread crust, you've got a little bit of the cracker, a wee bit of the wholemeal bread, and then the white bread above that, but it's quite smooth, and then you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy, fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. So let's have a little look at the fruity side of things then. So yeah, the fruity side of things with this beer, for me, it's kind of what you'd expect, to be honest with you. It's kind of what we picked up in the aroma as well. At the back of that front third of your palate, you get a little bit more of a kind of sultana type note out of this one, like dry white green grapes. Then as you move further forward in this one, you get a little bit more of you get a sort of oily pear. So there's a little bit of, as I say, sultana, dry white green grapey notes, a little bit of oily pear in there, and then as you move toward the front of that front third of your palate, you've got a little bit more of a kind of lemony, limey character coming out of this one. A little bit of gooseberry almost as well. You get a little bit more of that oily gooseberry the further into the flavour that you go with this beer. But yeah, as I say, I think this one's really nice, a very nicely done Mexican lager, I have to say, and pretty authentic, but not quite as oily. And I think on this point we can leave the flavour and round off the tasting with a look at the mouthfeel. So as I said, generally speaking, this beer is not the most oily and slick, if you like, of Mexican lagers that I've had before. But I would say that this one is quite, it really is quite just quite clean and quite crisp in a sense too. So it does have that side of things going for it. But it definitely, top end, the light bodied for me. The carbonation is very, very smooth. As I say, there's a little bit of the oiliness there, but not the most oily example of this style that I've come across before. In terms of the IBUs of the beer, I want to say this one's about 20, maybe 25. It's something like that. But the malt base, as we said, has a bit of graininess underneath. It's got a bit of smoothness in the middle and a little touch of sweetness to it, but not too much. Then you've got a lovely little bit of kind of fruity character coming out of the beer. So yeah, the way that this one goes together, I think, is really quite nice, and it gets a big thumbs up from me in that sense. I think this is a really nicely done beer. I'm not surprised in a sense because I know how good Remmarlöv are when it comes to their lager beers. But yeah, I think it again. I think they've put their own kind of touch on it as well. I would not be surprised if this one's got the Skåne's hops and a little bit of Swedish malt in it. So it's kind of like a Swedish Mexican lager, and it's always cool to find little things like this. But another very, very good lager beer from Remmarlöv Gårdsbryggeri. Not surprised. A little bit of everything you want. Yeah, big thumbs up for me. Quite happy with this one. So I think we can leave it at that with this. This was the Clara, a 4.7% Mexican lager from Remmarlöv Gårdsbryggeri in Eslöv here in Skåne in the south of Sweden. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Remmarlöv Gårdsbryggeri as well, and we will see about returning to these guys in the future. So until then, Slange, Skål, cheers, and see you guys on the next review.